We will call to order the Community Development Committee today, Tuesday, May 31st. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Calling the roll, Mr. Hairston.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Brady.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
We have a quorum, and I'd like the record to reflect that Mr. Greenspan and Mr. Miller are in attendance.
Good afternoon, Mr. Greenspan and Mr. Miller. Thanks for being here. Any public comment related to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 23rd. Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Item 5.
Ordinance 2015-0003, amending Title VII of the Cuyahoga County Code to include community development as an allowable use for the Casino Revenue Fund and to establish the County Community Development Supplemental Grant Fund Program.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Everyone should have a proposed substitute. You all can remember at the last committee meeting, we had a discussion about adding Community Development Corporation to be a part of the list of applicants in order to apply. But since then, discussions have furthered even more. And in your packet, you will see some additional amendments that were made. Now the fund would be $1 million. It would include the calendar years 2016 and 2017. It would also include or not-for-profit community development corporation tax exempt under the code there to be allowed to apply for the awards made under this CDSG program. Mr. Brady.
Was wondering if you thought it would be appropriate for us to bring, I think our staff person, Khalil Sarin, has been working on this for the last week since we had the last meeting in our discussions about the proposed substitute, to maybe give a brief explanation of who now additionally is eligible.
Okay.
Under this new expanded program.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. King and Mr. Khalil come up. We'll listen to a brief description. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, Michael King, council staff. As the chair pointed out, I think you did a good job of summarizing. The one other difference in this proposed substitute that I wanted to make sure the committee was aware of is that there's one additional change that caps the individual awards at $50,000, which, if you do the math on $1 million a year, means in effect there will be at least 20 awards given eligible applications. So that is one other amendment in there. As to the CDCs who can apply, the definition remains unchanged from the proposed substitute that was before this committee last week. The requirement is that they have to be a not-for-profit corporation organized under Chapter 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, and again, those are defined as charitable organizations, and they have to define a corporate purpose in their articles of incorporation. That many of which, if you read those through the code, I don't have them in front of me, reflect activities that CDCs typically undertake. We didn't provide a more stringent definition than that. It's somewhat of an open definition, but Khalil, I know, has been working on taking a look at the types of organizations in Cuyahoga County that meet that definition, and I'll turn it over to him to speak to that.
Khalil Sarin, council staff. So there are quite a few CDCs in the city of Cleveland that represent and work in various neighborhoods in the city of Cleveland. There are 27 listed at Cleveland Neighborhood Progress's website as CDCs that they are affiliated with. And then in the suburbs, there are also several CDCs that have been established to do this sort of community development work directly on the ground. Those communities are Euclid, Shaker Heights, Lakewood. There is, let's see, I believe Warrensville Heights has been mentioned with Cuyahoga, I believe it's Cuyahoga Council for Community Urban Redevelopment. So Shaker Heights, Euclid, Lakewood, Warrensville Heights, and then what was the South Euclid? South Euclid, yes. South Euclid has a community development corporation as well. There are additionally other organizations that could potentially qualify but I haven't found those to be directly affiliated or working with or the cities or being very active in their community development work.
Thank you, Phyllis. Yes.
I think for Mr. King, is there a requirement that the CDCs have to be in existence at a certain period of time, or where is that at? I'm not seeing that.
In the proposed substitute, there is no requirement, listed in the proposed substitute. There is a separate amendment before the committee today that was, I believe, requested by Councilmember Simon, that would require these not-for-profit community development corporations to be in existence for at least 2 years prior to the application deadline for the grant program.
It's come to our attention that that this would be a little bit too restrictive, and I'm a little uncomfortable without the sponsor being here. But my concern is that I wouldn't move that to the way it's worded now, not less than 2 years prior to the application. I would suggest that going forward from the date of implementation from this council, that newer CDCs would not be eligible for the 2-year period. So everybody that's in existence from the moment in time in which we pass this would be eligible. Going forward, we wouldn't be taking new CDCs in.
For example, Shaker is little less than 2 years in existence.
So I don't know what the committee thinks about that, but other than that, I would think that would be the right way to go. I'd hate to have a rush of CDCs being created just to jump in here when other folks have already been there doing the work. So I don't know what the committee has to say about that, Mr. Chairman.
I think Mr. Jones have a comment.
I want to be clear, are you suggesting that only CDCs currently in existence would be allowed? And is that in place of the 2-year more?
Well, the 2-year moratorium, it would exempt existing CDCs, and I don't think that's our intended purpose. But going forward from date, I would imagine when the full council votes on this, that would be the cutoff date for CDCs to be in existence, or from the date
Grandfather and the ones that are in.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think our intent is to exclude anyone.
Right.
But I also don't want folks coming in and rushing to file to get in on the goods, so to speak.
Right.
But my concern is excluding folks.
Who are
And I don't know if we want to go to Mr. Greenspan on that.
Well, no, and I appreciate that, and I was going to echo Mr. Gallagher's sentiment. So I believe in some of the conversation has been on the proposed amendment to the proposed substitute is that any organization, any qualifying organization incorporated as of a date, the date of this legislation is hereby grandfathered in, whereby the 2-year restriction is not applicable. But any organization incorporated after that date would have to wait 2 years. However the language is written, I believe, does that summarize? I think that summarizes.
I'm not even certain we'd have to wait for the 2 years, Mr. Chairman, because this is only a 2-year
period. It's only
period.
16, 17, correct.
As long as there be a date certain in which you are a certified, filed, and in compliance CDC.
Yeah.
And for that 2 years, it wouldn't matter, because we wouldn't be accepting any new ones for that 2-year period.
Exactly.
And we could readdress that if we consider this to be a success in 2 years.
Mr. Jones.
I think from maybe a more big picture perspective, all cities can apply. So even the suburban cities who don't have a CDC yet, they still, even if they, because I actually see a time, I imagine time coming when suburbs start to see value in CDCs and start to establish more. And not necessarily because of our funding, but just because of funding in general, and because of the needs of the new challenges that these cities are facing. They're going to see a CDC as a viable option. And right now, a city can still apply. And if they develop a CDC, the CDC may have to wait 2 years, but I envision them, if they have one, they'll send that CDC and just the paperwork process will still flow through the city. I'm not necessarily opposed. I think we're still getting to the same place.
Right.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any more questions, comments? All right, so one step at a time. Let's adopt, we have the pro substitute in front of us, so we'll deal with that first, and then we will go into the proposed amendment, correct?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The question that Councilman Gallagher mentioned about currently existing CDCs being exempt from, would we amend this proposed amendment to be a question of including only currently existing CDCs for this 2-year period?
From the date in which we passed this.
Correct.
There should be a date certain.
Well, the date it becomes law, right?
I'm not sure that we have exact language.
Yeah, just as staff, I mean, we might request just a little bit of time to put together some language to put into effect the, the intent of the committee here. And I don't know, either that can be done, either we can incorporate the existing amendment or leave it out and do that at a,
We can amend
Future
it
council
on the
meeting.
floor.
yeah.
At the time, right? That's fine, I'm fine with it.
So we could just go with the legislation.
We just go with the substitute, and then we can deal with the language
Right.
afterwards.
Mr. Chairman, that would give the Ms. Simon an opportunity to
Absolutely,
weigh
okay.
in.
Yes, I suppose so.
All right, well, we will move forward with the proposed substitute that we have in front of us. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the proposed substitute.
So moved.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Greenspan?
Thank you. I'm not a member of this committee, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And these amendments that are being discussed here, clearly I'm in support of, and I appreciate this committee's time and patience over the last while to get to this point, and I appreciate, and I believe Ms. Simon and I spoke, as a matter of information, last week to the Mayors and Managers Association. They are very desirous of having the ability to participate in this program. So it was widely accepted at that meeting.
Absolutely. Well, this committee thanks you for your comments and your due diligence on this and being patient with us as we work through this to get it here today. All right. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right. The ayes have it. And Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, now that the committee has adopted this substitute version as the version that's in front of the committee, I would like to hear from the administration as to whether they support this version of the legislation.
Ken Surratt, Department of Development. We support this version of the legislation. We do feel that it will increase the capacity or the volume of applicants, whether it be both for CDBG as well as the CDSG program, given that there's another program with 59 communities that can apply in addition to the 30+ CDCs. But we'll work with you to work on the administration of the program.
Thank you. All right. All right, Madam Clerk, so we need to move this out.
Correct, for second reading or whatever the committee
So we need to take a vote
decides.
on move this out for second reading. All right. So now I will entertain a motion to approve the proposed substitute under suspension of the rules. Second reading suspension? Or what are we doing?
It's up to the committee.
We're just going to the, what's the next council meeting day?
Next council meeting is the 14th.
So we move to the 14th meeting, correct? Or what?
You can move it to the June 14th for second reading or second reading adoption under suspension of the rules, whichever.
Then we'll have the final. I mean, you could amend it then, but the final passage will be what, 29th of June, 28th of June, we could do it then as well, which is generally what we do.
Just do it then.
Yeah,
Okay.
some more time than we need, but, you know, the councilwoman isn't here.
Right, she isn't here. Okay. All right, well, we'll do, we'll move it out for the second council meeting, yeah. All right? Second reading. Okay?
Second.
Yes, second. We got it? All right. I know it's so many proposed substitutes, so many amendments, so much going on at one time. It's a little confusing. All right, so we'll take a motion. I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed substitute as amended. Have a second?
Any discussion?
All in favor? Aye. Any nays? All right, ayes have it. All right, well, there it is. We finally got through that, all right?
Hey, don't underestimate.
Okay. All right, well, that's, well, item number 6, in miscellaneous business, Madam Clerk.
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other public comment?
No one has signed in.
All right, meeting adjourned.